Hello, everybody. Welcome back to HeartBrief from Cardio Care Today. I am Joel Kahn, your host, triple board certified preventive cardiologist in Detroit and Florida, clinical professor of medicine. We got three great papers. We're going to learn a little together, hopefully make a little impact on your lifestyle or your practice or both. And let's get going. Thank you very much. So hit the magical share button. I think we're going to go to a paper you could say is in memory of Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina. And I have to find, there we go. But published in American Journal of Preventive Cardiology. Hopefully you can see it. Just recently, just this week, Michael Blaha, senior author, major preventive cardiologist from Johns Hopkins University. Incidence and risk factors for aortic dissection. And what they did, and what is being done a lot now, are these huge databases, and they're combining them to get even larger numbers to analyze. The ERIC database in the United States, the MESA database, basically having gathered all kinds of information years ago and following people up for a very long time. 22,000 adults, mean age 57, half female. They did not have aortic disease, and they were followed for 20 years. Only 97 out of 22,000 developed, according to their chart, an aortic dissection. Fortunately, only 97. This is not a really great disease to have. So let's see. 2,000 would be 10%, 200 would be 1%. So we're talking about 0.5% of people roughly developed an aortic dissection. They had data on these people, and they looked at what predicted aortic dissection. And what they concluded was the most powerful factor actually was smoking, more than 4 times the risk of aortic dissection. Probably in some way weakens the wall, the artery, and causes atherosclerosis, I imagine. Hypertension, always a well-known factor, 2.6 times increased risk. Not really well delineated if very well controlled hypertension versus not well controlled. Male gender, well known to be a risk factor. Females do have aortic dissection, 1.6 times increased risk. And finally, age is always a risk factor. I've had people in their 30s with an aortic dissection, but it tends to occur in an aorta that's diseased, and that takes time, and age is a factor. So they did come up with a bit of a predictive scoring system. They didn't put it out there for all of us to use, but their scoring system combining these particularly easy to obtain 4 factors: age, hypertension, smoking, and gender are available. Interestingly, the diabetics had less aortic dissection, maybe just a random finding. Hard to understand that. So we need to consider this, and anybody with an acute chest pain syndrome, right to the emergency room, right to a CT scanner, right to have a D-dimer blood test. But what I always advocate is get patients to get a coronary artery calcium CT scan to screen them around age 45 to 50 for silent coronary artery disease. And if your radiologist or cardiologist is awake, they should provide in the report the size of the aorta. It should be there. If it's not, you can ask for it. And it's very reassuring to get back normal aortic dimensions. It's very concerning, and it's hundreds of patients in my practice, that a simple $100 coronary artery calcium score is the reason we know their aorta is 4.7 centimeters, and we're following it very carefully and following their blood pressure carefully, have gotten genetic testings and the like. All right, that's what I think we can learn from that one. All right, what we have next up will rankle a few people, but it's science. It was published, Frontiers in Nutrition. Red and processed meat consumption, the risk of pancreatic cancer, a systematic review. And the authors looked at 16 articles with 2 million participants, of which almost 9,000 cases of pancreatic cancer were found. They identified a 16% increased risk of pancreatic cancer in the highest versus the lowest red meat consumption. So not a incredibly robust risk ratio, but nonetheless, it also followed a dosing response so that those with the most red meat and processed red meat had the highest risk of pancreatic cancer. It was linear. This finding indicates that increased red meat consumption may elevate the pancreatic cancer risk. Therefore, daily red meat intake is recommended to be controlled, or I would say reduced, or I would say avoided. No evidence linked processed meat to pancreatic cancer risk. Boy, that's one of the few situations where processed meat has actually not come out worse than regular meat. So, we heard in 2015 from the World Health Organization and the International Cancer Society that they had data that red meat, and particularly processed red meat, increased the risk of colorectal cancer. It's been associated with breast cancer and prostate cancer and other conditions, let alone heart disease and diabetes. And we're going to talk about diabetes in a moment. But now we can add pancreatic cancer to the list of potential associations. Does it prove it? No. But when you see it over and over and over and over, you have to wonder, is this the optimal food as opposed to having a black bean burger, what I choose to eat personally, but you do not have to do what I do. And finally, the big one of the week, and always exciting when Dr. Valter Longo is in the literature, and it's always going to be one of the top science journals in the world. Cell Metabolism, Valter Longo from University of Southern California, probably the number one fasting and longevity researcher in the world, certainly the most funded one in the United States. And I'll read you the in brief and the highlights. Fanti et al., this paper, show that a low-protein pescatarian longevity diet inspired by traditional dietary habits in areas of exceptional longevity and supplemented, this is really interesting, with moderate methionine, increases growth hormone, FGF21 and GLP1, enhances cardiometabolic health and insulin sensitivity, and reduces fat mass without causing lean mass loss or requiring calorie restriction. That is a mouthful. A low protein, pescatarian longevity diet inspired by traditional dietary habits and the exact pathways, how it works. Some of you know the work of Dr. Longo in his book, The Longevity Diet. I certainly recommend you read it. Some of you know the 5-day fasting mimicking program called Prolon, which I just finished last week for 25th time. I do about 3 or 4 times a year for 5 days each. You should know about Prolon, scientifically proven biochemical support, metabolism support through food. But Longo also has a protein powder called L-protein. And some of us have wondered, why is there methionine in his protein? Because it turns out he's so accurate. Is all methionine dangerous because it has been linked to accelerated aging and cancer? No. Is all methionine to be avoided? No. He found that there's a sweet spot. So he actually put a small amount of methionine in his L-protein powder. Highlights: Western and keto diets increase fat mass and frailty and reduce health span in aged mice. A low amino acid, moderate methionine longevity diet promotes health and reduces frailty. Finally, higher animal protein to essential amino acid intake is associated with increased obesity and type 2 diabetes. Well, where did that come from, this higher animal protein and diabetes? And you can see the figure just above the highlights. There's a human figure because they had 2 parts of the study. Very, very detailed basic science experiments of papers, 27 pages long. And they had a database with 200,000 humans and associated protein intake from animal food versus plant food and risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes. And the more animal food consumed, the higher the risk. It was double the risk in 200,000 men and women. So I love when they go from benchtop to animal models all the way. Let me see if I can find you the human data. But the human data resonates and goes back decades and decades, whether it's the saturated fat in animal meats, whether it's the specific makeup of the amino acids and protein in animal meats. Obviously, it's the absence of fiber. You can get a feeling how data dense this paper is, but I'm looking for the human part, but we'll skip it. So Dr. Longo again contributes so much to the science of longevity, fasting, and aging. And this paper in Cell Metabolism is just a home run if you want to really read in detail. His book, The Longevity Diet, is a home run. I happen to notice just sitting on my home desk, this is what Pro One, if you're not aware, a 5-day food fasting mimicking diet program, over 100 patents, over 50 scientific publications, just food for 5 days, 800 calories a day. Big fan, reverses biological aging, promotes autophagy, and leads to healthy bodies, healthy minds. My patients love it. All right, we're going to sign off here at HeartBrief from Cardio Care Today. Dr. Joel Kahn, thank you very much.